Okay, so I will be explaining on why Zen is the weakest of the game. I wouldn't say that I dislike Zen, nor I like Zen in this perspective. And I'm pretty much sure that I understand on why the community would dislike Zen in general. And in my perspective, that in my view, Zen was poorly designed and its story was poorly delivered. So that's pretty much what I can tell about. So I will be noting that I will be using one, the no target cheat, in order for the enemies not to target me, to create a better flow of the presentation on what Zen is. Second is that I will be using no clip to show the parts where to show the parts of the level where to show the flaws and probably weak points or something that should have been shown to the player and stuff like that. And yeah, that's pretty much what I can offer to show this video. So I will be resuming this game. So starting off with the first part of the level, which is Zen. So yeah, pretty much it is an alien world at first. People would say this is interesting. You get stuff like these weird sprites that goes up and you get smoke, chimneys or whatever that is. But uh, first off, we would be doing a bit of platforming here. Players usually tend to do a long jump. Players usually do long jumps here. Uh, People would usually practice long jumps here. So the thing is, people would literally struggle on long jumps, especially those who do not do the hazard course. So first off, uh, one thing that I would say about long jumps is that people tend to not practice long jumps, especially when they're being told that they need to practice long jumps on the lambda core. So if I remove no clip on this one, let's see here. Do we have long jump here? No, definitely not. But I don't think that we have long jump on this one. But thing is, there is a very short window on practicing long jumps, and even hazard course does that. So I think it was just one jump, for instance, for hazard course, and maybe practice few long jumps before they teleported here in Zen during the Lambda Core chapter. And I'm pretty sure that players would struggle on how to do a long jump in these parts. So from this part here, going here, they would do a single long jump. That's okay. They would literally save, and another long jump from this part to here. So yeah, that's pretty much one of the few instances where a long jump can be utilized. Now, next would be this part. Uh, People would consider this one as one of the worst parts in the game. So basically, they had to long jump from here to the platform over there. And the thing is, once they have landed here, they're gonna have to transfer from one platform to another. Sometimes they would just jump from here to this red platform here. Other players would be confused on where to jump. Sometimes they would jump from here to here or from here to there, sacrificing health along the way, which is pretty much a very bad way to traverse these platforms, having to sacrifice your own health, especially when you're low on this one. Well, I wouldn't say that you would start very low on this one if you don't fight the controllers very well during the Lambda Core fight, but yeah, pretty much this would cost you to some extent, but in order to compensate for that, once you go to the bottom, you know what? Before I would talk about the compensation, basically you would land here, right, and you get low health, but players would state what would be the next part to do it. So apparently, you could either make use of this platform here, or from here you could just jump down here at the expense of health. a bit of help for all I know. But yeah, pretty much you could jump from here in order for you to traverse here. Now, this is one of the few confusing parts that I'm uh, gonna show to you. So, okay, so apparently, this part was quite confusing for players at first. So they have to traverse this part. They usually have to circle around parts here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. People would be confused on how to traverse this part. We have a healing pool here. Talk about compensation, especially when people tend to get damage from transporting from one platform to another. They tend to jump from this part up to here, or other platforming mistakes. People would not even realize that this is a healing pool, and not until they've stepped on it. But yeah, this is pretty much the compensation that Valve would give. Probably they realized that these platforms would damage the player and eventually get through this healing pool, or perhaps it would be whatever these ceiling uh, light light bulb thunder damaging things are. Uh, players would eventually land through here in order to heal themselves. And one bad design here is that these healing pools heal very slow. And yeah, that's pretty much what I can say about this level. Now, uh, going back to the traversing these parts, people tend to, get confused when it comes to having to travel these parts, and only to realize that this small cavern here would lead to potentially their uh, next destination, and that would be. Okay, so this is the part where things get really confusing. Now, I know it's quite obvious that you have to press these three buttons, but initially the player would just, what would they do here? Excuse me. What would they literally do here? So, apparently, the players would literally see these three pillars here, and what I can say is that, yeah, let's just press these one, two, and there was a tendency that people would struggle to jump from here to here, which contributes to its poor design. But people would be utilizing the long jump feature, on which people aren't that well versed about the long jump module yet, so they will have struggles from jumping to there, or perhaps here, or any exploit that they can do to make a jump for it to the third pillar. Now, for the third pillar, now every pillar is activated, but it would leave the question. It would leave them a question on how they would do it. What now? What next? Those were the kind of thoughts that the player would have, and until they would destroy this cage here, which would release these three butterfly things that would eventually go through these pillars. Destroy this one for now, and let's see where this goes. Okay, so now that we have these pillars as well as three butterflies from that cage, essentially tell the player, okay, this is something where I will go. This will be this is inner work. This will be this is obvious. The player will that's that. Now, this leads us to Golark's Lair, one of the few boss fights in the game. And how would I say this? Do we have a target name? Just to be safe. Now, issues here is that people would see the Gonark here. Now, their first response for the Gonark is obviously shoot. Shoot the Gonark, shoot the boss. That's what they say. Now, they would just blow everything from their arsenal just to destroy this thing. Everything. They are hyper fixated into destroying this thing. And apparently once you have damaged the Gonark enough, it would eventually lead you to the next part of the map. So people would be hyper fixated on destroying this thing. However, there are some few parts that we may have missed throughout the stage, and apparently due to the fact that people were so hyper fixated with battling the Gonark, what we missed here, what I've actually discovered from my 20 years of playing this game, was that there is a healing pool, apparently, and I did not even know that this one existed here behind this wall, which in fact is pretty much contributed to its poor design. Should I have ventured these parts, I would have discovered that there's a healing pool behind, and add up the fact that we have these sand trees, as we call it. Apparently, these sand trees would damage you if you're underneath them. Now, pretty much, you wouldn't be going near to these trees, especially that there are trees here, and there are trees here as well. The thing is that it's kind of blocked to some sense that players wouldn't even traverse it. Especially if there are trees here, people wouldn't traverse it. However, if they would be a bit adventurous to this, they would discover that there's a hidden pool behind it. Now, I've only discovered it several years after I played the game for the first time, and I never even realized that this was existed. Now, the thing is, I would consider this one as a very poor design concept because, given the fact that this is a boss fight, you would be dealing with a bunch of baby head crabs, the damage from the Gonark itself, and a few head crabs here. You're gonna take a lot of damage, and sometimes you would make accidents coming underneath these things, and you would eventually end up with, a bit of low health or something. So you would eventually need to heal yourself. And apparently, the poor design comes here, considering that this wall blocks our healing source here. Excuse me. And I think that Valve should have done a bit of change for the level design here. I mean, the healing pool was just there. It barely had its use because it was poorly placed. Unlike in Black Mesa, where the healing pool was exposed for players to access it, and it would give them an opportunity to get back there from time to time. But here in Half-Life, it was well hidden that it took me years to find this one. Apparently from one of the few playthroughs that I just found out that this actually existed. So those were one of the few design flaws that actually contributed to why Zen was the weakest of its parts. And as for the boss fight, all we had to do was just damage its walls. That's it. All we had to do was just damage its walls, explode whatever we can do to give this Gonark a bit of damage. And one more thing is that there are pickups here. The weapon cache here. Apparently these were your only resources for your ammo, so the player would be fixated into getting these instead of getting actual weapons itself, because the batteries here or the med kits, it's all that. And the ammo here is quite scarce here in Half-Life as compared to Black Mesa, where you would just recharge your glue gun or top cannon ammo for by getting near to those crystals. Here in Half-Life, you just have to go near these weapon cache here, and if you have batteries and stuff like that, they're all lying around the map. once you have enough damage to it would just go through this door here that you can destroy for all I know. Go to the next part and be able to get a few supplies here and there. Here and there. Leads you to this place. Now, pretty sure that there is bad design contributed to this one. Now, first off, is that what baffles me is the fact that you could actually fall from these. I mean, Valve could have designed this floor better to indicate this. You would actually fall from this. But I believe that these platforms here, these three platforms, possibly indicate that the player would actually fall from these parts. However, we might assume that this floor here would be walkable to some extent. Now, apparently that you could accidentally walk here and then the player would realize that they could actually fall here. For the first time to traverse this, at least, this is gonna be a bit of, puzzling in some sense. I'm not really sure about what to say about this, but I think that Valve would have designed this one better. And the arena here is just, pretty much a bit rushed, in my opinion. It looks rushed. Creating this one, I don't even, this rock doesn't even make sense floating. Even though this is a low gravity environment, it's just that this rock here is just floating. Textures here are just, I'm not pretty sure how to say this one. It's just, I really have no words about how bland the level design is. It's just branches and stuff like that. Just a few minerals, marble like stuff here, few sentries, few whatever these are. And yeah, going back, we have poor design choices here as well. These are just boxes, how it looks like, and they're just boxes. They're just squares instead of the opposed, different displacement geometry. It's just squares, and it just kills a bit of immersion for this alien world. And to talk more about this is the fact that there's another healing pool here, which is one of the two healing resources throughout the fight, and we got some few supplies just in case you would run out of ammo, and we have this one bounce pad. Now, the thing is, when it comes to bounce pads, Zen heavily utilize these bounce pads throughout the Zen chapters, and apparently we got surface tension and forget about Freeman, where we could utilize bounce pads, and there's quite a few of them actually. Now, the thing is, if you're poorly skilled when it comes to bounce pads, essentially it would be a waste of time for you to go back to one of these healing pools to heal yourself from the damage that you have accumulated from having to struggle these bounce pads, because fall damage and stuff like that. So apparently it's just basically a waste of time rather go back to fight the Gonarch, then eventually fall, go back to the healing pool, and then struggle a bit here, get some fall damage, and go back to Gonarch and stuff like that. The cycle continues until you go to the next part. And yeah, pretty much the design is really poor. Now, apparently I've only discovered this just now, or rather a few years back, I guess. So not only that you would access these parts from this big hole here, but rather this one small hole here. So you would access these lower parts from that hole and be able to traverse these other two caverns here. One would be the healing pool and the other would be the bounce pad that leads back up here. So pretty much Valve did have their thoughts on how to get back here. Now, going to the next stage, pretty sure that there were instances that people would be bugged in this part. I'm not sure why the bug happens in this part in particular where the Gonarch doesn't jump down for the final fight, but yeah, we have the tendencies for the players to get stuck here and pretty much they would be soft luck in this game. Well, I would say almost soft luck, but one time I told a streamer that they should destroy this particular floor here. Apparently I've heard that info probably a few years back, and it leads you to a teleport below it. This was apparently built to be indestructible. I'm not sure how they implemented it. I should be checking the map files for this one. Parts of the game. So apparently we would look around before the rock breaks below me. We would look around, and then once we look back, we get to see our objectives here. Now, veteran players would literally nade jump themselves, as from what I've seen from the one post in Half-Life subreddit, that someone actually used a satchel jump just to reach the teleporter here. However, there are two ways to traverse this. Okay, or actually 3 ways if we would include the nade jump, or 4 ways if we would just no-clip onto it. However, majority of the players would literally go through these parts, bounce back, or practically bounce back. So at the expense of health, they would literally try their best to make a quick save for it, then jump through these platforms. If they fail, they tend to load the game. Now, there are some cases that they would land through this platform here, or land through this platform there at the expense of health, or land through this platform here. Now, should the player traverse this map, one thing that I don't realize is that this part existed. It took me years to realize that this part actually existed. The caverns here, this is the intended route. This is literally the intended route for whenever you traverse this part. And there's a healing pool here, then eventually you would go down to this hole, eventually to this cavern here, and be able to traverse this one for a bit. And then you will lead it. It will lead you to this small room here. You know, a bunch of you know what cells these are and stuff like that. We get gas and stuff. Then eventually traverse through here. A bunch of barnacles hanging around. One bull squid here. Now you traverse these parts bit by bit. See what I mean? Even I get lost. And then eventually get through here. And then eventually this part here. Now this is the intended path that Valve wants us to traverse. However, due to its poor design, due to its poor design, however, players tend to make use of this one instead, the hard way rather. To the expense of their health, they would be able to land here or here or here. Then eventually think that these would be, you know, I wouldn't say think, but it's probably by the player's instinct that they would land here, so they would literally come to land through here, then be able to jump to this teleporter here. Now, pretty much the level design for this exact part is, you know, what ruins the experience for the entirety of Zen. And basically, this is the weakest part of Zen, in my opinion, at least. There's a lot of things to talk about this stage, a lot of wrongs that have been introduced in this part of Zen, and pretty much this is the weakest of all Zen. I literally hate this part, to be honest. Anyways, going back to where we are trying to discuss to, I'm gonna have to go to this time. So second to the not second to the last one, but you have landed here in this cavern here. So apparently there are several paths to take on this one. So first off is that you can actually traverse these parts here. So there is literally one right path for this one. To explain this further, usually players would traverse this one, the path to the left, because if they go to the right, they would eventually the tentacle here. Players wouldn't dare to pass this tentacle here unless they know the mechanic of using grenades to distract this tentacle here and be able to utilize the long jump from here to there. Okay. However, pretty sure that most players would like to avoid this tentacle here. They would go to the left and they would traverse this part first. This part's here first. Obviously the correct path is there, but if the player is explorative enough, they would just explore this one here and you know, just get some supplies rather, and then yeah, go back here, go back to where you started. It's like, you know, it's just, I'm not getting the sense of why this was first. So pretty much the correct path would be here, the obvious path, the hard path rather. The thing is, design wise, Valve intended it to be a stealth level, a stealth stage rather. So you would utilize your stealth tactics to bypass these tentacles here, then make a long jump from here to there. which is the easier path, obviously. However, players tend to go to the hard path and just go guns blazing on this one. However, if Valve wanted to show the stealth part of this, maybe at least show some parts where stealth is. I mean, let me explain this properly. Okay, if you want players to do stealth, at least show them obviously on how to do stealth, because Valve is trying to do the show and tell aspect here for the entirety of the game, and apparently Valve lacked the how do I say this? Apparently Valve lacked the essence of show and tell when it comes to stealth. Players would just go guns blazing on this part. Yeah, whenever they see this alien grunt here, they're fixated to shoot it, alerting the rest of the army here. In this part, you know, tend to how do I say this? They tend to poorly tend to shoot the player, you know, shoot the alien guns and stuff like that. They would just literally go here, do some stealth here. No, because they had to, you know, how do I say this? Crouch jump here and be able to traverse these parts here. We got a healing tool here and be able to get back through this behind the. They would go behind this part here. However, it would be useless. Even though that this part is meant for stealth, they would just eventually destroy these vorticons here as well as the alien grunts behind it, and then go to this part here. You know, it's kind of useless that if Valve intended it to be a stealth level, it's just worthless in the first place. So, when we cross through here, or if you did the easier way, like do stealth and crouch through here, and eventually go through this place, which rewards you with a healing tool rather. You would just traverse here, maybe explore this one for a bit. It's poorly designed that even this path isn't, you know, seen that much unless you're explorative. So, you would pass here and eventually encounter this gargantua. Now you could actually do stealth on this one as well. However, you would just do stealth. You know, there's a bunch of stealthy parts here and there for Valve to encourage player to with, you know, and you could actually sneak past this gargantua. However, well, who knows? I know I've been using no clip and no target, but I'm not pretty sure how this part goes, how this part flows, given the fact that I've been playing less of these sand parts lately, but pretty sure that considering my 20 years of playing this game, I still don't get these parts at all because of how poorly designed these levels are. And yeah, going through there, the short gargantua chase here, or short gargantua encounter here, you would just jump here, then make a very long jump here. Should you fail, you would land here, or you would die to death here, and then eventually go through this part. Now, this is another gatekeep, considering that you've done blast pit a lot of times. You would be able to make use of grenades here. However, what if you run out of grenades? What if? Now, here's a poorly designed part where the nades are actually placed here, and they're quite camouflaged to some extent, because you can barely see those grenades from a distance. Like, if you would stay here, you know, you wouldn't see these grenades. If you would stay here, it's just one grenade here. You would stay here, you would barely see the grenades here. And pretty much players would, at their first instinct, would throw a grenade here, or just throw their nades from below. Let's just say we would throw the grenades here for the most part, since most players would throw nades from the holes where they came from, and they would just run through here. They would just run and run and run, do the same thing, then run, and this part. Now, you could actually do stealth in this one as well. However, let's say stealth here, then be able to make a run for the teleporter without being noticed by the grunts, or basically go guns blazing and stuff like that. So we're going to the final part of Interloper, and
Not you alone, not you alone.
okay, so for this part, you may have heard these voices, right? Now, these are vaguely told, story-wise. Yeah, the story being delivered here is poorly delivered, that we barely get to know who Nihilant is. Well, all we can say is that Nihilant is that one being that is, trying to keep the rift open of some sort and stuff like that. However, uh, uh, the concept of Nihilant here, the story behind Nihilant here is vaguely told, to be honest. Especially when he tries to speak to Gordon, like, here comes another, something like that, or like, uh, something about the truth and stuff like that. You will be able to see them in the game files, or rather in the wiki, on what Nihilant is trying to say here. But yeah, I think Black Mesa actually, the feature of the subtitle system implemented for the source engine games, Black Mesa actually implemented the subtitling system, and they were able to uh, uh, subtitle on what Nihilant is saying, and in Half-Life, it's vaguely told on how Nihilant is, or what Nihilant is talking about, or what is it trying to speak. So yeah, that's pretty much what we can say about it. Now, let's try to traverse these parts at least. So, we were in this kind of strange room. The textures here are just, it's kind of alien, but it's not that appealing, at least. But it does appeal for it being alien, at least. So I've said at least a few times. Take a shot every time I say at least, or technically, or whatever. I've said a bunch of times. Now, you would be entering this factory here. The very first instinct that the player would do is that they would shoot these vorticons. Literally, the mindset is fixated for every first player that these vorticons aren't friendly, you have to shoot them. That's their first instinct. They would literally shoot them. I've seen quite a bunch of people who would shoot these vorticons as their first response. And what's more is that I think the platforming stages here, it's just that it's making players stuck here. Let's see here. I think Valve tried their best when it comes to explaining this one, and I call them showers at least. So apparently there are Zen showers here, and I think Valve did a demonstration on this one, a subtle demonstration on how these showers work, and usually they would just come through here and go leave. So if the player would eventually try what these showers would do, it would heal them. So at least Valve did something from these showers. Now, going back to platforming stages, apparently players would be going through this part here, going through this elevator here, and eventually through this conveyor belts here. Now, for the first playthrough, players would just go through this force field here, which would, eventually get them squished and, die. So the players would immediately think that this isn't the right path. Where else should I go? If they do not have the aspect to think, they would just say they're literally stuck in this stage for a long time. Not until they realize that there's another conveyor belt that would lead you on the right path, and you would come from here or maybe make a long jump from here. So, I know it's poorly designed. There were a bunch of instances where Valve isn't showing where the right path is. Where's the aspect of the show and tell that Valve is trying to come up with here? So, yeah, pretty much you would just come through this bridge here and be able to go through the next part here. Basically fall here and yeah. They have poor design here as well. They should have sloped this one at least for the player to get out from this hole easily and be able to come through here. Now, as what I mentioned earlier is that vorticons tend to, players tend to kill vorticons when you see them. You know, going back, I would say this. Players have a fixed mindset on killing these vorticons whenever they see one. Well, as we previously seen, these vorticons are friendly, in fact, and they're only friendly up until these guys show up. Specifically, the controllers here. These guys here. So, these guys are named as controllers, but okay, I'm saying but here. Okay? These guys are named controllers, but who are they controlling? Now, the thing is, story-wise, it is poorly planned or poorly built on what these controllers do. It is vaguely told that these controllers are it is vaguely told that these controllers are just they're just enemies in the minds of the player. They're just enemies in the minds of the player. Lore-wise, these controllers actually control these vorticons, and Valve isn't saying anything that these controllers are in fact controlling these alien slaves here, or the vorticons as we speak. And yeah, pretty much we can't tell that these controllers are controlling vorticons until until they read the wiki and say, oh, no wonder these vorticons aren't attacking me, it's these guys. Or they would say, alien slaves, as the name fans would say. I mean, it lacked the context to tell that these aliens are, actually friendly and are enslaved by Nihilant's forces or whatnot. Now, you may say that these comments that I'm making right now basically would reek the smell of, bro, I think you need that much hand-holding. Well, pretty much you would say that. Yeah, you could say that. However, we are talking about the level design here, or how the game is designed, or how the story is even designed in the first place. Valve is making an innovation here. The innovation here is how the story is being sown here, or how the story is being told, or basically the aspects of show and tell in the first place. Now, what Valve is trying to deliver here is basically the foundation of the show and tell aspects, or how the story is being built here through this game. We are just seeing the foundations. We are seeing the foundations of this aspect, and Valve is trying to show other game developers how it's done. They're trying to raise the bar here. And apparently, we are seeing roughly about the aspect of show and tell through these parts. See? I'm not saying that Valve did their innovation poorly. It's just that they tried their best at least. And it seems that other developers have catch the context on how storytelling should be done and stuff like that, But however, due to the fact that Zen is rushed, the story here is just poorly developed. Controllers having to control alien slaves and whatnot and stuff like that. And apparently, this level design wise for this part, it's quite dark for me at least. It's kind of hard to traverse these parts and eventually go through here and stuff like that up here. You know, now they would see that there's a huge barrel in front of them. Now the player's instinct would be it's probably a hard wall or something, considering that they've shot a lot of barrels from the previous part, so they wouldn't bother shooting this thing for the most part. Instead, they would just crouch here, or maybe, you know, I may be wrong this one, but I'm pretty sure that this barrel is indeed different from what we've seen from here, right? So their first instinct would be shooting, and then they would see that these barrels will eventually spawn these alien guns. Now, the player would eventually traverse these parts after killing these things, only to know that there are a bunch of eggs along the way, and they would try not to shoot these eggs. However, I've seen some playthroughs that they would just scroll underneath these parts right here, and then skip these parts. And eventually they would realize it at the later part of this part in particular, that destroying these eggs would eventually spawn an alien gun. And there's another path here which leads to how would I say this? You know, it's circling them. However, they would see that there's another part here, a few supplies here, but it isn't worth it considering the fall here. It's just that it's circling the player here. So pretty much worthless to say that pretty much worthless for the player to circle this part only to end up with the same pattern. I think it's gonna puzzle a player a bit. And we got some supplies here as well, which is poorly designed in my opinion. I mean, they would have put this one in a better place at least. At least put them someplace else, like probably any part of these parts here. And I'm not entirely sure why there are satchels here. I mean, I really don't get why these satchels are placed here. What for? I mean, they're just how would they say this? They're just there. It's just poorly placed and stuff like that. I mean, design-wise, right? It's just, what's the purpose of these satchels? We also have this part. Now, should they have crawled this part, or should they have crawled this part and traversed each and every barrel? They will eventually encounter this barrel here. It would tell the player that these barrels are indeed breakable or destroyable, whatever you call it, and then eventually spawn the alien guns here. Then eventually we will get into this shower here and this one guy here. Maybe it would explain why the supplies at some parts. And yeah, it's just it. It's just there's nothing really to do that much for these parts until you get into this vents here. Well, I wouldn't say until. You get into this vents here, and another one of the poor design choices. They should have done these parts better. Let's see here. Okay, let's get through down here. And this would be one of the second to the final parts of the game where you traverse. Now, the player would look around, see elevators, and see how high this goes, and then they would eventually see the teleport over there. However, what players do not see, well, I would say some players don't see, is that there's another part of this level. I think there's another place to traverse here, and it's these numbers. Now, pretty much that the player would be fixated into going up to that teleporter there. But the thing is, there's another place here where players could traverse, and it's for the sake of supplies. For the supplies, at least. It's usually for the supplies. Some players fail to see this. It's actually poorly designed to some extent. You're gonna have to battle a lot of enemies, and it's gonna waste a bit of your ammo. And it's kind of useless, to be honest, considering the amount of ammo placed in these parts. I mean, let's count the caches here in this place. I would consider this one as one cache. Let's see. Two cache. I wonder what these satchels are there for. Three caches here, just grenades. Nothing really useful, to be honest. Just throwballs or satchels, shotgun shells. And pretty much this weapon cache here is just a bunch of ammo, uranium ammo, and a lot of other ammunition for other guns. However, it's really not worth exploring this one. If you're gonna make this one for the purpose of refilling your ammo, it's not that worth it, you know. Considering that the fight would be really tedious. So, considering that the next fight would be really tedious. Anyways, going back, we would see this part here. Basically, the player is hyperfixated into going up here. That would be their main goal. And if they're explorative enough, they would just eventually go through and be able to get through this teleporter here. Let's see. Here and eventually going through this place here.
I am the last.
Honestly, this is a very good part, indicating the story-wise, it would indicate that he is very near to the very creature that he's seeking to destroy. And yeah, they would have designed this one better, but I think it's cool enough. I think these are one of the good parts of Zen, at least. So comes the one of the most underwhelming bosses here in this game. So we got Nihilant. Now, pretty sure that the player, the first instinct for the player is to just shoot at Nihilant at first. Now, I think Valve vaguely explains that these heal Nihilant to some extent. Let's just say the players fail to realize that these glowing orbs are Nihilant's current health for the first phase. Healing. And the players would eventually realize that these crystals are giving him power, so it would be their first instinct to destroy these crystals. However, most players have been looking around or have been teleported a bunch of times that they fail to see what these crystals literally do. And it's quite tedious to say that. They tend to get teleported into these places. It's either this part here, or that part there, or this part here. So, apparently, yeah, the player would have to do this tedious parkour going up here, probably because they don't have the instinct to look for the supplies or something like that. Now we go back here and then fight this thing again, and then pretty much that the player won't see the fact that these crystals are healing him. Excuse me. Now, another part is that there's this one underground part here where the players would eventually recharge their ammo and whatnot. And we got these two ichthyosaurs here, the fish from Half-Life. They could get supplies here underwater and stuff like that. Pretty sure that, it's kind of good that they would utilize teleports to refill their ammo. However, one thing for sure is that if they haven't mastered these bounce pads, they would be struggling when it comes to health. So they would bounce, then reach the teleporter there, and if they fail, they would get fall damage should they not fall in water and stuff like that. It's just that bounce pads are heavily utilized here. They aren't really that taught well earlier in the game, but I really wish that Valve should have shown that the these bounce pads. Third is that this teleport here, this place here after you get teleported by one of Neoland's attacks, which is this part in particular. It's the uh, you could refill your ammo here. Usually, you could refill your ammo, particularly here. It's just two caches of ammo, and the players would eventually state or have their instinct on where should they go next, only to see this floating rock thing is if the player doesn't look up, pretty much they'll be stuck here for I think a few more minutes until they would realize, oh, there's a teleporter here. How would I get there? And these floating rocks, eventually, the player would realize that they would stand here and then jump through these uh, ball thingies. This teleporter here. Now, I really wish that that Valve would have shown better when it comes to these crystals because uh, the player keeps on getting teleported amidst the attacks, and I can pretty much tell that while the player is attacking Nyland and they get teleported before uh, before they get to see that these crystals are in fact healing him or healing Nyland though. Now, once we have destroyed all of these crystals, let's go for the full impulse at least. Okay. So I forgot that the glue and gun has limited range. Okay, no more lights. So here we go. Side is open. Now, to think of it, players are going to need to use these bounce pads. Okay. However, Nehilant is adapting to the player's height. They tend to go up. It tends to go up. Go higher. So, if the player is poorly mastered when it comes to bounce pads, they would have a hard time reaching his head. Or, rather, I would say that their first instinct was where is its weak point? The head's open, maybe shoot it. That would be their instinct for the most case. But I've seen some of the players that do not know that the head was actually this part in particular was the weak point. Something like that. So you just have to jump through here, jump through there, and then jump through there, and then eventually destroy his head. Yeah, I think there's a bounce pad here for all I know. Yep, there's a bounce pad, and they would just destroy Nehiland's head from here and out. So pretty much it's just that. So yeah, so that's Zen. It's underwhelming to be honest. There's a lot of factors to say. I mean, like, what I've said, this video is just what I've said in this video is just scratching the surface. I'm pretty sure that there's more that can be explained. And yeah, that's pretty much what I can say. And that is basically my opinion on these parts of the game. And yeah, I hope you got something from what I've said uh, throughout this video. It's probably an hour long as stated in my OBS, but I'd really wish Valve had done better for these levels. And for Black Mesa at least, I think they delivered Zen very well. They've uh, done Zen better. However, they've done some generic puzzles and uh, they've done some. I think they've elongated the level a bit too far. I think they overcooked it in the oven at least, but nonetheless, it's still good. So, in general, both Zen chapters in both games are practically, you know, still good in particular, but they have their flaws of their own, and they're not exactly perfect. And I wouldn't say that uh, Zen is the part that I wouldn't say that because of Zen, the game is entirely bad. I mean, Half Life is still good to some sense, and so is Black Mesa. Both games are literally good. Both games are enjoyable in their way. They both have their own flaws, but I wouldn't say that both are bad games. Especially for the Zen parts. And yeah, that's pretty much what I can tell about this game. And I hope you understood what I'm trying to say for this game. This is basically my opinion for these parts, so I hope you understand.